Okay, thank you for joining us. We're excited to have Cory O'Brien here talking about his new book, Two Truths and a Lie. Cory O'Brien is the author of Zeus Grants Stupid Wishes and George Washington is Cash Money. He has written for numerous award-winning video games, including Monster Prom and Holovista, and designed multiple tabletop games, including Inhuman Conditions and Hand Wombat, excuse me. He lives in Chicago. So let me get to some questions here for our guest. So what inspired you to write this book?
When I was in graduate school, I went to art school, and in one of my classes, one of my fellow art school students brought in a book that she had sewed out of $1 bills. And she was like, this is representative of the fact that information is the new currency. And I looked at that, which like it felt a little bit reductive. I was like, what if actually though? Like, what if it was actually currency? And so I started thinking about it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And it seemed like a natural setting for a sci-fi mystery. So that's what I ended up exploring.
It's very cool. Um, so who are your inspirations in the sci-fi genre?
Oh man, so many. Um, I like definitely have taken a lot of inspiration from William Gibson and Neil Stephenson. Those are two of the earliest like cyberpunk writers that I read. Um, and both of them have had really varied careers. Like their early stuff is like very high tech and like almost hallucinatory. And their more recent stuff is like it's weird. Like as time has gone on, they've just like gotten closer and closer to the present day. So like William Gibson's new stuff, like the Peripheral, or I was actually inspired a lot by a more recent Neil Stephenson book called Fall or A Dodge in Hell, about a video game programmer who dies and then has his brain computerized. So those are definitely two big influences for me. But then I was also inspired a lot by noir. I've loved noir fiction for a long time, and so I've always really loved Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett. Raymond Chandler's Farewell, My Lovely is one of my favorite books, and there's a lot of also elements from The Long Goodbye, if you've read that, that will be familiar to you if you read Two Truths and a Lie.
I haven't read the book, but the movie was very good with Elliot Gould in that one.
Mhm.
Um, so well, you touched on this a little bit, but what made you want to include the noir element? And well, you already kind of mentioned the noir genre, but yeah, oh yeah, you kind of said your favorites. But what made you want to include the noir genre in the book?
Well, partially just because I like it. I've liked it since I was a kid. I kind of found out about the genre backwards. Like the first piece of noir stuff that I was exposed to was my dad is an actor, and as a kid, he was in a play, like a satirical play, like there was a send-up of noir called The Tangled Snarl and Murder Me Once. And he played a private investigator called Spuds Idaho, with all this really florid language and stuff. And I just kind of fell in love with it from there. And then like found the actual noir from that. But as far as like deciding to use it for a specific story is concerned, beyond just liking it, which is important for getting through a novel, you have to like what you're doing. It's also, I think, a really good structure for exploring a world, because a noir detective is sort of by definition an outsider. They have an outsider's perspective on this world, and so anywhere they go, they have a reason to like dig into it, explain it, find its corners, its ins and outs, and people are inviting them into all these places they're not supposed to be in. because they need this outsider to come and solve like a mystery for them. And so I had this rich world that I was excited to explore all aspects of. And noir ended up giving me a really good framework to be like, okay, well, I want to make sure we talk about this, and we want to make sure to talk about this. So let's thread a mystery through these locations and personalities in order to really give like a full experience of the world.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to tie things together. And the noir genre is so fascinating with the conventions and the, the femme fatale and the double crossing and the, tangled web and yeah. Um,
Yeah.
um, do you have any, what was your inspiration for the main character?
So Orr is a pretty nasty, grubby 68-year-old man who is in some ways inspired by my grandfather. I don't want to offend my grandfather by saying that it was one to one. My grandfather is a very fastidious man. He was not nasty. He didn't have a bunch of diseases. But he was a World War II veteran. And a lot of noir heroes are war veterans, and it gives them a very specific uh, flavor because they have experienced something that is outside of society, and then they've come back and they try to reintegrate what they've learned how to do into being useful and functional in a civilian world. And so they have this weird like undercurrent of violence. They have this weird undercurrent of alienation. And I sensed that in my grandfather, that despite him having like a really great sense of humor and being a great storyteller, and working hard to support his family and all that, he had an edge to him. He had certain things that he wouldn't talk about, and there were certain ways in which he was isolated. And so I definitely took that. Um, but I had a friend from graduate school named Ryan who sadly killed himself back in 2016. And he was an amazing writer. He was also an amazing actor, and he was very adept at playing these nasty old man characters. And so that is where I think one of the places that I get the nasty old man aspect from is from him. He was like very, very funny and very effective at like playing, despite being my age, like playing these decrepit characters.
The book is very funny. Where do you get your sense of humor? What are your inspirations in humor?
Uh, I I tend to gravitate towards humor because it's one of the easiest ways to know that my writing is working. Um, it can be hard to tell if a story or piece of writing is like making people feel scared or sad or whatever, because we only express the absolute most extreme versions of that feeling. And most of the time, people are just kind of like blank. But if I'm reading something out loud and people laugh, like I know that I'm making progress, that I'm moving towards what I'm trying to do. So that's like the very practical reason for it. But I've always been interested in humor. I love the feeling of being made to laugh. Uh, I remember my dad showing me like Monty Python's Flying Circus when I was a kid and just not being able to stop laughing. That feeling of like breathless laughter. And there being a kind of mystery in that too. It's a kind of alchemy because it's not like you can reproduce the exact same joke and it'll have the exact same effect every time. There's like so much that goes into a good joke, from the telling and the timing to the specific phrasing. Like it's a really fascinating and deep topic that you can just like research your whole life. So I have made a bit of a study of it. I seek out different kinds of humor and try and figure out why it's funny. And I also just like tell a bunch of bad jokes. That is part of how I acquire a sense of humor is I just like tell a bunch of jokes that don't work. You know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I've got to have the experience of trying out a joke, having it not land, and then thinking like, well, why didn't that work? What do I want to do next time? I got a lot of practice out of that because I used to have a website where I would retell mythology like it was 3 a.m. and I was drunk in a chat room. And I would do this like 3 times a week for weeks and weeks. There are like 600 myths on that old website now. And so I just like got very much in practice of like, I got to take this source material, and the source material itself like is meant to be serious, but there's humor in it. How do I like as quickly as possible distill this into humor so that I can produce this thing and just keep doing it?
Cool. So, do you have ideas for your next book?
I do, yeah. I do want to write. I have a manuscript that's finished. That's for more of like a YA or middle grade story. But as far as stories in this world are concerned, I want to keep writing stories that center around different people who have different relationships and different positions in the world. Because I like books to feel finished. I don't necessarily like getting to the end of a book and being like, oh, stay tuned for part two. I find that very frustrating. But I do like being able to get deeper into a world with multiple iterations. So I've started working on two other stories in this world. One that would be more of like a police noir drama, and one that would center around a someone whose job it is to go out and party all weekend and then sell all the memories of the party to less cool people. And so effectively you just like black out every weekend and then wake up on Monday. And it's sort of like a like a version of the Hangover, basically.
Very interesting. Looking forward to that one. So you talked about some sci-fi and stuff, but if people enjoy your book, is there anything you could recommend for next books in the cyberpunk noir genre?
Well, the only other book that I know that like fully hits that cross section is Altered Carbon by Richard K. Morgan. That's another specifically cyberpunk noir story that very much like follows the tropes. It has some really interesting conceits as well. Um, I can't speak for the Netflix adaptation at all. I've heard mixed things about it, but I did really enjoy the book. Um, it is extremely graphic, so you have to go in prepared for that. But it was very cool. I enjoyed reading it while I was working on this book.
Nice. So what would you do you have any advice for aspiring authors?
Mm, yes, uh, but with sort of qualifications. Like people oftentimes try and like turn their own success into a formula that they can give out as advice. I have been disabused of that notion because my success felt extremely random. It's not that I don't feel like I deserve to be publishing books, because I do think that I'm a competent writer, but I ended up where I am through a series of like random coincidences. You know, like I wrote my website and then that randomly like went viral at one point, and then I got to publish a book through that, and then that was how I got my agent. It wasn't like I just like worked really hard and followed the formulas. Like I got lucky a bunch of times. And so I can't give the advice like, hey, get lucky a bunch of times. That's not really reproducible. What is reproducible as far as like trying to be successful in a creative profession is concerned is like, since it is, in my experience, pretty random, just rolling the dice as many times as possible, like having your work out there, having the opportunity for people to stumble across it, um, and just like, because every time you roll the dice, there is a chance that it will come up positive for you. But I think even more than that, like going outside of the idea of like trying to be successful or trying to make it as a writer, because I don't even know whether I'm there, is just always checking in with yourself. I always try and check in with myself to see if I'm enjoying what I'm doing, because it can be very easy to fall into this trap and listen to all of this advice about like you got to treat it like a job, you got to do it even if you don't like it, you got to wake up every day at 5 a.m., grind yourself to dust. And if you're doing all of that in order to pursue this career that is supposed to be fun, then you're really just conning yourself. You might as well just get a job that you hate that pays better rather than turning this into a job that you hate. So care has to be taken to like not tell yourself like, oh, I'll have the life that I want once I've succeeded at this. But until then, I'm just gonna have like a bad time all the time. Like try and create the life that you want to have now, step by step, and don't postpone that because you only have so much time.
And then is there anything else you'd like people to know about your new book, True Truths in a Lie?
Uh, I Anything else that I would like people to know? I would like people to read it and to enjoy it. I think it's been a like a pretty emotional journey for me working on it, because it has been it's my first book, or it's my first novel, and it sort of touches on a lot of the loss that I've experienced in my life. I think that if you in your life have experienced the sense of either losing someone unexpectedly or losing someone very slowly, both of those are covered in here, and something that I was exploring and trying to come to terms with for myself. But I didn't want to do that in a way that was just miserable. Like I promise the book is fun. I do want you to know that.
Yeah, the book is a lot of fun, a lot of humor in it. So does anybody have any questions in the audience? You can put them right in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk about the art and the masks behind me. So I collect masks. I've collected masks since I was a kid. This one is from Indonesia. This one's from Japan. This one's from Venice. They're usually gifts from other people. I haven't gone to all of those places. I have been to Japan and Venice, but I did not get the masks at that time. These are my competitive writing trophies from my friend's secret Ink and Blood dueling society, which I'm not supposed to talk about. There are some risographs here that I got at Chicago's Alternative Comic Expo. This one's a print from Mob Psycho, which is one of my favorite animes. Got my D&D books here. This is a portrait that one of my D&D players did of the arch villain in our most recent campaign that we concluded last year. And this up here is an illustration that my wife did of Merlin from the Once and Future King, which is one of my favorite books. I can bring this closer because I'm very proud of her. I think she's extremely talented. You can
Wow.
see him knitting his beard into the stocking cap that he's making. And there's
Wow.
all kinds of little Easter eggs in there
Hmm.
to enjoy.
Very nice. Speaking of artwork, who did the artwork for the cover?
The artwork for the cover, let's see, we have the credit. Yeah, right on the inside flap on the
Oh,
back.
inside. Okay.
Yeah, Tyler Comrie.
Oh, cool.
We went back and forth on it a few times. Yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out.
Hmm.
Yeah, actually, as long as I'm bragging about my wife, she also did the inside of the end papers. She helped make this map that's in here.
Oh, very nice. I have the advanced reader copy, so I don't have
Oh
that
yeah,
book.
you don't have the end papers. You don't have the
But
fancy end.
I'll be excited to see that when we get the book in the library. But right now we have it on the ebook, so but people could read it if they're interested. Um, at least until we get the physical copy. But oh yeah, Michelle said, love that Once a Future King from high school reading. Thanks for sharing.
Love that book. It's one of my favorite books.
Do we have any other questions? Anybody have any other questions? Um, well, if we don't have any other questions, we do have a copy, a signed copy, to give away. So check your email for that if you are the winner. Um, and thank you to Cory O'Brien for this nice talk about his book. And as I said, we have the book in ebook format. We'll be getting it hopefully very soon in physical format. And please check our social media for upcoming events. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. It was good getting to talk to you.
It's very nice talking to you.
All right.
Have a good night.
Have a
Have a
good
good
night.
evening.